Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. The new George Miller feature is out. We're very excited to talk about this. A lot of people comparing it to Fury Road. Is it better? Is it worse? We got the scoop for you. We're also going to take a look at La Chimera, an Italian film, indie Italian film that came out earlier this year. We had missed it when it had a limited run in theaters. It's now out on VOD, starring Josh O'Connor, who we saw in Challengers not too long ago as Arthur, a Italian grave robber in the 80s. Excited to talk about that movie. Stick around for it. We can take a look at a couple trailers, some things coming out that might be worth your time. Before we get to all of it, we need to talk about the news. I think the biggest story this week, undeniably, is going to be the Knives Out 3 sequel title reveal and casting. Rian Johnson's new murder mystery is coming. They've already shot it. Things are happening. We have a title reveal. We've got some casting. Andy, what's going on in the world of Knives Out?
So a lot of announcements, not just the title, like you said, a lot of exciting casting. Even of today, the third film in this trilogy of whodunits will be Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery, because everything's got to have an SEO subtitle these days. But Wake Up Dead Man is the third one. These, of course, started in 2019's Knives Out, followed up by Glass Onion in 2022. And feature a big whodunit style Agatha Christie mystery with Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, as the detective, and a large assortment of characters. These are a lot of fun, a lot of social commentary, and then we don't have a date yet, but they're getting going. And then we also have some exciting casting announcements. Zach, tell us about those.
Yeah, some of the casts that we've heard about includes, oh man, I got this two links to the same article. I thought these were separate things. Josh O'Connor from Challengers and that movie La Chimera that we're talking about in just a minute. Kaylee Spaney is going to be in this new feature. Andrew Scott was just announced today. He's in Fleabag and Ripley and All of Us Strangers that we watched here on the show. And who's that other so-and-so I'm thinking about? Somebody else.
Those are the main ones that I saw. Kaylee Spaney,
Yeah, right.
Josh O'Connor, we just saw in Challengers.
Honestly, people have been fan casting. It's kind of exciting to me. It feels like you're seeing like the all-star team get announced for the year. Like when Rian Johnson's Knives Out movie is like announcing its cast, I'm like, ooh, yeah, I can't wait to see how these two play off each other, or like speculating who they might get. Obviously, Knives Out and Glass Onion both had very full casts, very diverse, people from all walks, and everybody's usually really good and fun in them and have these unique character silhouettes. Johnson likes to fill his world out with like very interesting individuals, a la Agatha Christie novels, of course, with Benoit Blanc at the front of them. One of the things I've really been interested in is this Twitter shift I've noticed, and you've probably seen this too, where people are starting to say Glass Onion was not good. What is that? Glass Onion was great. Maybe it's because people just watched it on Netflix, didn't go see it for the 1 week it was in theaters, but like it's a delightful murder mystery. I'm shocked people are saying it wasn't good. I think it's fine. I'm looking forward to Wake Up Dead Man. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. These are both great movies. Rian Johnson's a really talented screenwriter, always puts together a great cast. Daniel Craig does this great southern, deep fried southern accent. These are always a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, they're a good time. I'm looking forward to catching it. I don't know when it's going to be out. 2025 is the official date. If we have the means, though, and I would say if you're listening to this and if you have the means, try to keep an eye out for that like 1 week. Netflix will put Wake Up Dead Man in theaters, because that's when we went and saw Glass Onion. Delightful. I think these movies play so much better on the big screen. Netflix can't stand putting their movies in theaters. I think they're nuts. We should go see them there. That's what theaters are for. So we'll report it here on the show. We'll try to line it up and go see it then. That's probably when we'll end up reviewing it. I know Richard Linklater's new feature is out right now, right, for like a week in theaters. Hitman, starring Glenn Powell, that nobody's talking about. The new Richard Linklater film. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, something else coming to theaters, or maybe not coming to theaters, that I wanted to talk about this week is this film, The Apprentice. This is a small story at a Cannes Film Festival this week. The rest of my life, Andy. Yeah. The rest of my life, I'm gonna second guess.
Everyone thinks
James
it's more
I know. It seems like it's so much bigger. It's just Cannes Film Festival. Yes, out of Cannes this week. The Apprentice, a new film about presidential candidate, former President Donald Trump's early years, working with his lawyer, Roy Cohn, and played by Jeremy Strong. Trump would be played by Sebastian Stan. It's got some features about the man's life. I don't really know a lot about it, but I know that his campaign has sent a cease and desist letter saying it is a smear job and they don't like it. Weird story. I can't remember the last time I saw a presidential campaign trying to shut down a movie out of Cannes. Yeah, kind of odd.
Right. So, like you said, this premiered at Cannes, which just wrapped up last weekend, and they're trying to sell this to studios, get wide release, and the Trump campaign sent a cease and desist. They said the movie's not accurate or has negative portrayals, but this is going to have the Barbra Streisand effect, I think, where it's just going to make everyone want to see it more. I don't know exactly who picked it up. I'm sure someone did, but it's an interesting story, and we'll definitely be watching this for the show at some point. I heard good things about Sebastian Stan. This takes place in the 80s and kind of is the rise of Donald Trump as a real estate tycoon in New York City, and working with his close, I don't want to say friend, but colleague Roy Cohn, who was kind of infamously associated with Donald Trump. And so we're going to be following this, seeing if this actually does get released or if that cease and desist kind of gets more behind it. But it's an interesting story out of Cannes.
Yeah. Shout out to Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn. I just started rewatching Succession again. Oh my God, he's awesome. Kendall Roy, here for you. Yeah, Variety says the film presents a damning portrait for the former president as an ethically compromised philanderer who stiffs contractors and cuts deals with the mob. Includes other controversial details, including a scene where he has an abusive relationship with his wife Havana, abusing amphetamines, undergoing liposuction. I like this quote from Trump's Stephen Chung, his campaign communications director, who said, quote, here it is, "This film is pure malicious defamation, should not see the light of day, and doesn't even deserve a place in the straight-to-DVD section of a bargain bin at a soon-to-be-closed discount movie store. It belongs in a dumpster fire." Direct quote. And most interestingly, I think, in regards to, like you said, the Streisand effect, maybe people wanting to see it, even though they are being told they shouldn't, is this response from the director, Ali Abbasi, Iranian-Danish filmmaker behind Holy Spider and Border. He said, quote, this, everybody talks about Trump suing a lot of people. They don't talk about his success rate, though. And he said, quote, "I don't necessarily think that this movie is a movie he would dislike." And I think that's interesting because I think part of the reason the man has so much draw in the public is because he seems like a guy who's a bit of a jerk, but he's going to be a jerk for you, right? He's going to be a jerk for America. He's going to go in and get stuff done, roll his sleeves up. And in that way, like, all of his bad press has only ever seemed to be something he rolls into a W, right? The man swings at all of it. Like, in the same way, like, I think if this film glorifies the man, like Wolf of Wall Street, like didn't Jordan Belfort like that movie? Wasn't he warm on that? Like, isn't that kind of how this works? Like, I would think you're into it, but what do I know? I don't know anything about this, so other than movies. But any other thoughts on this one, Andy? We should jump to the box office. That's one of the big stories.
Yeah,
we're talking about.
We haven't seen any trailer footage or anything about this Donald Trump movie. So it'll be interesting to see when that comes out. But this is supposed to be an awards contender, so will be out sometime this year in the fall, probably. So watch this space for more.
One more story this week from the box office. Box office meltdown from Memorial Day. Furiosa edges past Garfield to win Memorial Day with the worst #1 opening in 3 decades. Andy, is Furiosa a bomb? Is it all but a foregone conclusion? Are they never going to make more Mad Max movies? And how did Garfield do so good? What's going on?
I mean, the theaters are, man, it's shaping up to be a rough summer because no one is going to the theater. Just some numbers here. Mad Max opened to 32 million over the 4-day weekend. It was estimated to get closer to 45 to 50. And for the 3-day, which makes the 3-day only like 26 million. Garfield did just a little bit less. But it's bad. That is low. That's lower than like most every weekend so far this spring. And it's baffling to me because not just Furiosa, but there's other good movies in theaters right now. There's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. There's The Fall Guy. There's If you want to take the kids, and people just aren't going. And there's a lot of people guessing as to why, but sometimes people just aren't interested in the product, even if that product is good at the theaters. And I don't I don't really know what audiences want. We know that the Deadpool Wolverine pre-sale tickets have been really good, but that's kind of it. Really bad weekend at the box office, man. Worst in 3 decades, and that's not adjusted for any kind of inflation either.
Yeah, a Hollywood Reporter had this great line. They said Furiosa has the worst Memorial Day #1 opener since Casper debuted in 1995 to a $22.5 million opening 30 years ago. Casper, the friendly ghost. I think history will be kind to Furiosa. I think that's worth mentioning. Like, you can look at the score, you can look at critics. Everybody is warm on this movie. The only people that don't seem to be warm on it is the general public. And there's a couple of kind of generic reasons why that is. It's an R-rated feature. It's gritty and grimy and post-apocalypse. It's odd for sure. It's an odd, maniacal, almost like Terry Gilliam-esque look at like what an apocalypse might be, covered in blood and chrome and sweat and dirt. And if you want to be really cynical, it's a female-led feature, which usually don't perform as well. I think a combination of any of these things may be true, but I cannot tell you how bummed I am that it's not doing better. I am incredibly warm on this movie. I think it's super fun. People are comparing it to Blade Runner 2049, the Denis Villeneuve's feature. I think that's probably an apt comparison. Like, banger sci-fi feature that nobody's going to see. You know, like everybody's waiting for Deadpool and Wolverine for them to jump through a portal that we saw when Doctor Strange a decade ago. It's fine. I should be warmer on Deadpool Wolverine as well. I shouldn't be so cold on that. But Andy, what do you think about this? Personal interpretation? Are people nuts? Is the box office dead?
I mean, it's just rough because sometimes there's no reason. It becomes a little bit more clear in hindsight. Again, it's a rated R feature. It does have big stars, but maybe not quite big enough. It is a kind of a weird niche property. Summer usually kicks off with a big superhero movie. Last year we had Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which was really successful, and we were supposed to have Deadpool Wolverine at the very beginning of May. That was supposed to kick off, and then it got delayed because of the labor strikes. So I don't know. It's just rough. Audiences aren't going for what's out there right now. And one thing I've said is that I think maybe we did superhero movies for so long and so frequently that you kind of trained a generation of moviegoers to only go to see one kind of movie. They're not really interested in anything else. And that's someone coming from someone who loves superhero movies. But if you only go to one type of movie for the last 15 years, then you're maybe not very interested in other things.
Right, and you're maybe not gonna. Maybe people. It's a sequel as well. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. Like, if you didn't really see Fury Road or you don't really recall it, you may not be as interested in going to see the follow up. Like, that makes sense. It bums me out. For the record, George Miller, I think, is definitely making another one of these if he has the means. Somebody will give him money to make another Mad Max movie. He's made 5 over the course of his career with incredible lengths of time between each run. If he wants to make another one, I think it'll get made. There's some stories about whether or not Tom Hardy would be interested. Obviously, Fury Road was complicated. I don't even know if another Mad Max movie would feature Tom Hardy. I would hope so, but we'd have to see. With that, we should probably just jump into it. I think no better place to start the conversation. Andy, any other thoughts on the box office?
No, I am ready.
All right. Well, with that, Andy's going to be taking the summary on this, so please excuse my silence while Andy's reviewing it. Andy, please go ahead. What am I saying? Just go ahead. Whenever you're ready. It's all you.
Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. So this is the long-awaited follow-up to 2015's Mad Max Fury Road, which of course starred Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron as Furiosa, a character who is kidnapped as a young girl in this post-apocalyptic wasteland, and she spends all of that movie trying to get home. And so in Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, we get that backstory of exactly how she got kidnapped, what happened, how she became this character. Because we know, like, the wasteland is a brutal place, and for a woman who are most of the women in this world are used as, they refer to them as breeders or brides. She's not that. She's a high-ranking officer who drives the war rig, and so we get to learn how Furiosa became this, her struggles. She is kidnapped and taken to the biker leader Dementis, played by Chris Hemsworth, in a scene chewing role. He's great in this. We see we see how she develops and survives in this terrible place, but we also get more of the backstory of the wasteland itself and the politics of these three fortresses of Gastown, the Bullet Farm, and the Citadel, where all the food and water is. And we get more backstory of Morton Joe and his kind of followers from there. So it's a very rich in world building. It's very different from Fury Road, but I liked it a lot. We're going to get into it. Zach, what do you think?
So I think Furiosa is obviously coming a few years later than Fury Road. I think a lot of people have walked in thinking it's going to be like the exact same feature, but notably, Furiosa is a much longer timeline. It takes place over years, whereas Fury Road takes place over like 3 days and a couple of evenings, right? And I think while Fury Road is a really tight action feature, it's fundamentally just one long sequence. This has more space, and the trade-off for that space is you get a richer, deeper dive into a world gone mad, and I think it's great, dude. I was super into it. I really, really, really warm on this movie, but I've known a lot of people have been like, it's slow in the middle. That wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. It takes a little time for Anya Taylor-Joy to show up. I think all of that is marginal. I think, like I said in the open, history is going to be really kind to Furiosa, despite the box office. I'm excited to talk about it. I don't want to give anything away. I think you should absolutely go see this in a theater. If you're interested, go see it on the biggest screen with the loudest sound system you can, because it won't be the same watching it at home. Andy, where do you want to get started talking about Furiosa?
I want to start a little bit on our plot and timeline. So one of the things I've seen this twice, by the way, already, because I really loved it the first time and wanted to get a second viewing, which loved it even more both times in IMAX. So she is kidnapped at the very beginning. I mean, instantly that kicks off the thing, and we spend a long time with young Furiosa, who's played by Elila Brown, who's a child actor who was actually in 3,000 Years of Longing, George Miller's previous film, and that's actually where they found her, and she was really good on that, and then he thought she's going to be perfect for this role. She's a well-trained, disciplined young actor. And we probably stick with her story for about an hour. It's a pretty long time before we see adult Anya Taylor-Joy stand up. But we get this brilliant sequence where she's kidnapped and where her mother, played by Charlie Fraser, who we actually just saw in Anyone But You, plays her mother in this brutal role where they have a long chase of she's on motorcycles to try and rescue young Furiosa. We know from history, the first movie, or in Fury Road, that's not successful. But we spend a long time with that sequence and meeting Dementis, who's the leader of this biker gang of kind of misfits. They're kind of organized, kind of not. He's a very different kind of warlord. And at first I was like, well, is he just going to be kind of a shade of a Morton Joe, or just like, yeah. I didn't think he was going to be very good, and he is phenomenal. This role is so good. He's both nice and not and terrible at the same time. He has so much showmanship. He pilots this chariot of motorcycles, wears this big white shawl, which is eventually turned red. He's kind of competent playing the politics of the wasteland. Sometimes not, but it's a great kind of first half of the movie, the backstory of Furiosa as a young person before we see her as Anya Taylor-Joy, and then her journey to try to get home.
I think one of the things I really liked about Fury Road that's subtle, that a lot of people talk about but don't really notice upon first watch, back when it came out, was how much effective world building is in the subtleties of dialogue and detail in Fury Road, right? Somebody will mention the Bullet Farm or Gastown, which are places you're kind of aware of and even know that like the Fury Road runs along. That's where the war rig is going in that film. But you never really get to spend a lot of time in these places, right? And somebody may mention the War Boys or what have you, bikers, whatever. And you may see some of that, but you don't really get to go there. And Furiosa like delights in taking you to these places and showing you more and giving you more detail. And I've seen some people say that that's too much, that I think is too indulgent, and that it spends too much time digging into what's kind of already there instead of building new things. But I disagree. I think it's a more nuanced look at a world gone crazy. Like for every thing it dives into, you just like involve more unique detail. Dementis, right? Like our kind of like Andy said, thought was going to be maybe a bit like a Morton Joe villain, instead has like a whole cavalcade of cronies around him that are all weird and have cool names and like have weird outfits. And you don't really get to spend a lot of time with them, but they're just as fascinating as these details were in Fury Road. Like the world building that's made through just expanding on what was there and giving us more in ways that we didn't expect is phenomenal. There's a couple of really great action. I mean, there's more than a couple of really great action sequences, but a couple notably expand on the Fury Road formula involving the war rig, a lot of high octane petrol fueled experiences. And I love the way that you take what was already like inventive automobile combat in Fury Road, these guys on like giant pikes swinging around and flamethrowers and stuff, and give us something entirely new in a way that I didn't expect. I felt like a kid in a candy store watching sequences in this film. Like so much fun, so inviting, bringing in big props too, right? Like the back of the war rig has this thing called the bombie knocker, which is like these medieval looking like
it's like a flail thing.
Yeah, it's so insane looking, and it's like such an exciting way to just evolve the formula a little bit and give us more of what works, but in a better, like more interesting way. And I love how kinetic a lot of the action feels. Looking at the trailers, I remember a lot of people said that a lot of Furiosa looks phony. They shot it in studios, but you really do fall into the world of the wasteland, I think, when you're watching this, and you forget. And Miller also notably still does so much practical. Like those flamethrowers are real flames, you know, like the camera like crashing in on a car into something else is probably genuinely them wrecking a camera. Like it feels so kinetic. And it's really impressive that you just fall for it anyway. I hardly hear anybody here about talking about how the sky looks good, the contrast is too high, or it looks like the lighting's bad. Like none of that is a concern at all, because you just get totally into the world of Furiosa.
Right. It's so engrossing, and like I said, it expands the lore. Not too much, because I read recently that George Miller he doesn't want to be like dive too much to like kind of like Star Wars, where everything's got a huge backstory. He wants to give you just enough, and a lot of things he does this in Fury Road brilliantly, where a lot of the backstory is just kind of hinted at or spoken in just a few sentences. You don't get tons of exposition. Characters acting. And George Miller's talked about making silent films with sound. In other words, he wants the images on screen to tell all the story and not have everything just spoon fed to you. So we have these incredible visuals. And I'm just there's a sequence towards the beginning where we see Dementis and his gang capture another group of marauders, and there's a Joker-esque battle for them to see who survives. And this ritual is choreographed so well. It looks like they've done this 1,000 times, and it's just that rich visual storytelling that just really pulls you in. Same thing when we get to finally see a Morton Joe and the War Boys, and all that's the action is exquisite. I didn't think that we would be able to reach the heights of Fury Road, but we actually absolutely do. There's the big action sequence in the middle of the film, the midpoint, which is amazing. It absolutely blew my socks off. And then we get a few more after that, which are equally as impressive.
Really can't understate how tremendous the performances are from our two leads. I know Andy already talked a bit about Chris Hemsworth as Dementis. Anya Taylor-Joy hardly has any lines in this movie, notably less than Tom Hardy had and as Max Rokitansky in Fury Road. But she does so much emoting with her eyes. Additionally, also, it's worth mentioning that, yes, the child counterpart in the film takes up a fair portion of it, but they do a really fantastic job of blending those two performances, and the transition from one to the other is a bit hard to see. There is a time jump that helps, but they did this thing where they were like deep faking Anya Taylor-Joy's eyes onto this child actress slowly over time. And it's Variety reported this, like they just slowly did it ever so slightly over multiple scenes. And the two of them like almost begin to blend into one another until you get like the full transition to Anya Taylor-Joy. Then you get a bit more time jump till she's getting into working with the war rig. And I think all that stuff like creates a character that feels nuanced and natural. And it sets up so much opportunity for Anya Taylor-Joy to like just give you proper emotion, like just with her look and with her eyes or with her face. You can always tell how she feels on screen. So even by saying very little, she says a lot. Meanwhile, Chris Hemsworth Dementis, perfect opposite, talks all the time. And he is this like Jack Sparrow, Carnival Barker character with his big microphone and his goofy
Barnum
beard.
and Bailey kind of
Yeah,
circus
yes.
leader.
That is right. That is like so not a good guy, but you can't help but enjoy watching him. He's such a delight. Even like his scenes in the trailers don't hold up as good in context when you, well, I'm sorry, don't hold up as good in the trailer without context. Once you watch him in the actual film, even his goofy lines sound big and epic and boisterous. Like he just has so much presence on screen as this like leader of a biker gang, Dementis. And like maybe one of his best performances, probably a favorite for me. Like Hemsworth is tremendous in this feature. Anya Taylor-Joy is too. Delightful, tons of fun.
Yeah, it's incredible to see Chris Hemsworth do, because he's mostly known for Thor and some other action movies, which he's fine in, but he really is just doing something completely different. It's this manic performance. It's creepy. It's complex. It's not just like a villain of the week kind of twirling mustache thing. Like there's a lot going on underneath as well. He's so good as this ruthless leader who will just kind of sacrifice his own men when needed. there's a great part where even one of his captains is like, "You're scum, Dementis. You're so twisted." And of course, Anya Taylor-Joy, perfect as Furiosa. Lots of eye acting, but there's so much action in this, and she is a trained dancer, which I've heard is a great thing for people to work with, because they're so comfortable and familiar with their body that it's a little bit easier for them to do things like complicated action sequences and things, because they just know how to carry themselves and memorize the choreography and all. So a lot of it is a very physical role. So I think she's fine. And then, of course, the young Elila Brown as the young Furiosa, who carries, I mean, a good hour of the movie is spent with her. We also have some returning favorites that we saw in Fury Road, such as Nathan Jones, who plays Rictus, the kind of giant guy on a Morton Joe's team. The actor who played a Morton Joe sadly passed away several years ago, and so that actor had to be replaced. But we see the people leader, the bullet farmer. We see some people who are actually in the Mad Max game and don't survive to Fury Road. Even so, we get to see characters we're familiar with, and also a couple of new people as well. Dementis, like I said, he's got this kind of small squad of captains semi-loyal to him, which are also really interesting. It's the character building is so good, and again, the design, like Dementis he drives this bike chariot thing. He looks like a Roman legion. He's red for half the movie. He's Dementis the Red, then Dementis the Black, and he starts out as just Dementis the Great. This is really interesting change in name and characters, but really fun characters.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about this movie, and I'll start to curb it here because I know we're running out of time, but I love the way this film kind of talks about the myth of like the epic character, because like Miller has said in the past that these films are loosely connected, right? Like there's not really one tangible through line all the way through. Somebody asked him when the apocalypse is set for these movies, when does this happen? It said 50 years from next Wednesday. That was his line. Like, cause it's an obscure idea of a future, and Mad Max being a Mel Gibson or Tom Hardy, or Furiosa being Anya Taylor-Joy or Charlize Theron, are these events being even played like necessarily in perfect order and all working together in sequence is irrelevant. And Furiosa does a really clever job of commenting on like the myth of the legend, right? Somebody telling these tales years later. This film even has a narrator that explains that like he's heard this from down the line, passed down story over story, the tale of the great Furiosa, right? The angel of darkness. Like, and it gives a lot of opportunity for these movies to have fun building a world and not be so stuck in the rules and in order. Like, if anything, it gives the opportunity to embrace chaos. And I think that's something that these films do so well. Like they really just lean into this idea of a world gone haywire in every sense of the world. They're violent. They're very funny. Notably, a handful of laughs in Furiosa. Good ones too.
Yeah.
Like actually good jokes on screen and funny visuals. Like I love that things are awkward. Oh, disgusting body horror in a couple sequences. Good God, I couldn't believe watching this on an IMAX. Certainly an R rating. Like all creates an experience at the movies that is so delightfully mad. Tons of fun. It's like watching a twisted Alice in Wonderland, right? Like, and I really can't. I don't have enough good things to say about it.
One of the last things I wanted to touch on is the sound. We have Junkie XL, otherwise known as Tom Holkenberg, back for the score, and so we have that really like grunge metal score. But also just the sound of this movie is incredible. The motorbikes, the motorcycles, the cars, the engines. It's so loud and grinding. And there's this great part where there's a motorcycle called the Thunder Bike, and it just has a really unique sound. Chug to it sounds different than all the rest of them, and it's used throughout kind of the opening sequence, and it's those kinds of details that just sound amazing, especially the big action sequences as well. Lots of engines revving, that whole sort of thing. Another huge bonus to this movie. Like it's part of the reason you got to see this in theater, see it in IMAX if you can, because man, the sound is such a great part of it.
I know, right? Just before we get to recommendations here, I do want to reiterate: if you are interested in seeing this movie, please go see it in a theater. Don't be like, oh yeah, I want to see it. I'm going to wait for it to come to streaming. Don't. It won't be as good. It really won't. This stuff is meant to be big cinema, big presentation, biggest screen you can find. Pay for the XD. Go for the IMAX if you can find it. I don't know about Screen X or 4D. Maybe that's a good time. I haven't done it, but I'd say if you have the means, if you're interested, that's what you should do to see it. That's the best experience for this. With that, Andy, would you recommend Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga?
Absolutely. This might end up being on my top 10. Definitely honorable mentions for this year. So much fun, incredible work in world building, expanding on the myth of Furiosa and the wasteland at large. Incredible performances by Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth, as well as the young Alila Brown and other cast of characters. Incredible action, incredible sound. I've seen it twice in the last 3 days. I might try to see it again because it's never coming back to theaters. So highly, highly recommend. Go out and see it before it's gone.
I'm in the same boat. Please go see Furiosa big. Please go see it. Support cinema. Go see something awesome. It's twisted. It's weird. It will take you a place you've never been before, even if you've seen Fury Road 10 times like we have. I'm with Andy. I got tickets to go see it again this Friday. George Miller is already talking about a black and chrome edition. We'll probably cover that on this show just so we can go see that again. Anything could happen, but I'm excited that Furiosa is around. I'm so bummed it's not doing better at the box office. Go see it. Go see it if you can. Go check it out. It's worth it. Green light. Go for it. If you were looking for a sign to go see Furiosa, this is it. Go. It's a good time. I promise. And with that, we should move on to our next segment. Couple exciting trailers to talk about this week. Andy, what do we call this segment?
It's time for the trailer park. So to kick us off, we're going to be looking at Beetlejuice, which is, of course, the follow-up sequel to 1988's Beetlejuice movie. An extended trailer came out just recently, and that's what we're going to be checking out. We don't really get much more story. It's probably kind of follows along the lines of the first one, where there's the need to expel certain ghosts within this house. We do see Catherine O'Hara returning, Winona Ryder returning, of course, the great Michael Keaton returning as Beetlejuice. But we have some new faces as well. Monica Bellucci as a character named Dolores, who's looks a lot like Corpse Bride. She's always fantastic. Willem Dafoe as well in this kind of Two-Face looking makeup, something like that. It's got the visuals look a lot. Look, that's what sells the movie. That's what looks good. Reminiscent, of course, of the 1988 original. I don't know if this will find our audience is after Fury Road is not, Furiosa isn't doing well. I kind of don't know what audiences are going to be into this because I don't know who's excited about a property 35 years after it came out, and it was a a cult classic back in the day. But I don't know if it's still gonna have the interest.
They had a musical that did well, so there's some chance that maybe this will drum up some of those Broadway people. No, I think Beetlejuice. Honestly, like a hot take, it is the most Tim Burton looking movie I've seen from Tim Burton in a decade. And I mean that in the best way. I like old Tim Burton, dude. I really liked old Tim Burton, but Tim Burton has slipped in out of kind of what's the nice way to say this? He's in the Robert Rodriguez territory. He's in the Robert Zemeckis territory. He did those Alice in Wonderland movies for Disney, and they were like, somehow these made money. Keep making these big mocap green screen features where you're just shooting on green sets with green walls and green floors every day. And he just ended up spending a lot of time there. And then he made that movie Big Eyes, which did like okay. And like, I don't know. I know he did Wednesday on Netflix. He did a few episodes of that. And that did well. And Jenna Ortega obviously has come over for this. But this movie looks practical in the best way, like those old movies. But like Andy said, like Beetlejuice didn't even do that awesome over. Like, it's not exactly a cultural zeitgeist over Beetlejuice, So I don't know. It's a sequel. Winona Ryder looks fine in it. I don't know. I think Andy might be right. Like if people didn't turn out for Furiosa, what makes them think that Beetlejuice is going to draw eyes? I don't know.
I mean, essentially, no one turned out for anything this entire month, and September is usually a really mediocre month for movies. So I don't know how this is going to do. Maybe there's interest, but like I said, I mean, it's a long time ago. A lot of people who were into that movie probably dead by now. So man. I don't know, man.
One more trailer to talk about this week. A film out of Oklahoma. A trailer just dropped this week. Reagan. I want to talk about Reagan. Not much to say about this, but I'm interested. Film stars Dennis Quaid as, of course, Ron Reagan, the president, or as this film depicts him, the man growing from childhood to his time in the Oval Office, right, fighting the Reds and rebuilding the economy and keeping America going. As a scrappy young upstart. Stars Dennis Quaid as the man. Also stars John Voight, Justin Chatwin. You might remember him from. He's Tom Cruise's son in War of the Worlds. He also played Goku in the live-action Dragon Ball movie, and Penelope Ann Miller as Nancy Reagan. I know they shot this out in Oklahoma. I know it's supposed to be in the vein of like Oliver Stone's JFK or like W presidential kind of features, but I know this is shot by Sean McNamara, much smaller budget. Andy, hot takes on Reagan.
Man, this looks like such a propaganda film. Like I could barely get through this trailer. It's all glowing representations of Ronald Reagan as this struggling average guy who's out to fight the commies and Red Scare and the Soviets, and there's some hints of things like the Iran-Contra scandal and things like that. When did he know exactly the things he knew? Man, Dennis Quaid does. I mean, he looks the part. He's got the voice down, but
he's doing a voice. Yeah.
You'd have to pay me to see this.
Hey, watch out! There might be a slow week. Right around fall. You might be watching Reagan for the podcast. Well, we might review Reagan. I don't know, man. I miss when Dennis Quaid was doing stuff like Disney movies, but hey, whatever. Like to each their own. Whatever. Anyway, we should move on to our last film of the episode. I'm going to be taking the summary on this one. Excited to talk about this. This is, well, I'll just jump into it, I suppose. The movie is La Chimera. So, La Chimera is the story of Arthur, a young, I'm going to say archaeologist turned grave robber in 1980s Italy. Arthur is relatively newly single. His partner, Beniamina, has functionally gone missing, which is a real struggle for Arthur because Arthur has a gift of finding missing things to functionally divine, almost have like a sort of vision when he is near a grave site, which is a big deal in 1980s Italy because grave robbing is the hot new thing. All these old tombs from hundreds of years ago that were full of gems and jewels and statues and ornate objects, they were previously seen as something you can't take, sacred items, but it's the 80s and capitalism has turned, and now people are finding that robbing tombs is a good way to get a little extra money. Arthur has just escaped from jail. He's out of jail, I should say, hasn't escaped, has kind of this ratty suit, and he arrives back to his hut in Italy. He goes and meets Benjamina's mother, who he still has kind of a connection with because she misses her daughter. Finds some of his old friends who are into grave robbing, and kind of gets back to work. When suddenly, one day, he digs into a gravesite where he discovers something uniquely sacred to him personally, and that's when he begins to find that he's sort of haunted by something larger, something bigger. La Chimera is a melancholy, magical realism film. Mark Kermode called it a caper. I think I kind of agree with that in the loosest sort of way. It is 2 hours, 10 minutes. It is nearly all in Italian and stars Josh O'Connor as Arthur. It is bold cinema in the best way. And I'm excited to talk about it. Annie, what did you think of La Chimera?
There's a lot of things I like about this. There's some things that don't quite work. It's a little long. The pacing suffers a little bit, but it does have some fun moments. So it's called La Chimera. Well, there's several reasons. But a chimera can mean two things. It can mean something made of two kind of different parts. Like the beast in antiquity is like head of a lion, tail of a snake, kind of thing. And it's also kind of an impossible dream. And Josh O'Connor's character Arthur embodies this. When we first meet him, he's kind of asleep on a train. He's just been bailed out of prison after doing a little bit of time for being caught grave robbing, and we see him kind of wake up in this train car. There's some young women on it, and they start chatting a little bit. He flirts with them around, but then he immediately kind of gets into an altercation with the cigarette guy who's selling stuff on the train, and immediately kind of everyone is scared of this guy. So we see two ends to this person where he can be nice and sweet, but also kind of a bit of a thug. And he's apparently pretty good at this kind of a little bit of a mafia type operation where he's helping this team of bandits find ancient Etruscan graves, rob them, take them to a buyer. Meanwhile, he again is missing the love of his life, Benjamina, and some people are really fond of Arthur, so other people are not. He's kind of living in two worlds, trying to be both a good man and a criminal. Is a little bit of both. Has no reverence for these ancient burial sites, and that for him it's all about the money. It's a really interesting character portrayal in the style of kind of that this movie's created in.
Yeah, and O'Connor's such a great pick for Arthur, this kind of like frustrated young man who like clearly does not really like the world that he's in, and like actively chases something different, like something a bit more mystical, and has this gift. And I love the way that's kind of presented in the movie. I know I said magical realism, and for the most part, it's a grounded feature. I mean, it's in Italy, and it's shot beautifully. Written and directed by Alice Rohrwacher, Alice Rohrwacher, I've heard it pronounced. She is from Italy natively, and she really wanted to use big lenses, get like big shots of landscapes, lots of like good film grain, and like present a world that like feels like it's right out of a time capsule. And like that's such a great place for our characters, these kind of grave robbers, to be robbing graves, right? Like they are literally traveling back through time when they like enter one of these like grave sites that Arthur finds, because nobody has been in it for years, like, and they have to evade the police to do that, right? Like, which is where you get kind of these caper moments. But as they like travel into these and like see these unique paintings on walls and carvings, like they're completely normal individuals. In fact, some of them look almost homeless, right? They're wearing like sandals and ratty shorts, and Arthur's got this goofy suit that looks like it has just been through hell and back, right? He's still wearing uniquely white. Love it. And I love that like the film gives Arthur this gift that we see, this bit of magic that he can kind of like divine where these things are. And then when you actually uncover these artifacts, like they feel so mythical in and of themselves. And then of course, to lean into the capitalism part of it, these grave robbers take these things and sell them to a art dealer, basically. That's how Arthur ends up in prison at the beginning of the film, getting caught doing that. Like, so they're just turning around and flipping them to the highest bidder, who's immediately going to spend a bunch of money, and they'll be on their way. And they say in the film, these, you shouldn't be worried about these things being sacred because they're just old. They're like a gift from the dead to us. They're meant. We were meant to find these. Like, this is the way it's meant to be. And there's this bit of like fate and destiny and like what is ordained in the divine in there that's like just subtle enough, I think, across these big Tuscan landscapes to, like, I think really transport people. Additionally, I think it can be hard to connect to. At 2 hours 10 minutes, it's a bit of a long feature, and it's not exactly action packed. It's a simple script. It's mostly subtitles. I think a lot of people would just get a few minutes into this and think, okay, well, when's it going to get going? When are we going to get here? And I think I had a bit of that experience. I definitely had heard a lot of good stuff about this. I watched it. I came away thinking, wow, that was a bit more understated than I thought. And it's probably worth a second viewing, I think, for me to kind of really dig into what's going on in La Chimera.
Yeah, it takes a while to get going. When it hits the second act, it's a lot of fun. That's where normally your fun and games part of the movie is, and that's where we have a lot of montages of them robbing graves, avoiding the police, these kinds of fun things. The setup takes a while. I wanted to point out another character called Italia, played by Carol Duarte. Who she's living in this house with Benjamina's mother. She's like a live-in maid who's living there for free, but is getting singing lessons. She's not a very good singer, but they're kind of bartering services. And her and Arthur seem like they kind of might have a romance going, but they're very different characters. She's a very kind of morally centric person, and he's very morally dubious. But one of the things that the film does is it's surrounding these people in culture. Like, she's a singer. The Flora, that Benjamina's mother, is the singing teacher, and then they're all these artifacts that they're robbing. That they're works of art, and so I think one of the kind of themes we have is this: the way all these people ignore all the arts around them, and how the arts are ignored in general in favor of like capitalistic goals. So it's a really kind of interesting theme that goes on. But the actress that plays Italia is a very important character and a lot of fun.
Overall, like, I really love this feeling of like yearning and searching for something, right, that like pervades La Chimera. Like, Josh O'Connor so perfectly fits as this like frustrated young man who just cannot seem to find the thing he's really looking for, which is this kind of lost love. And he's finding all these representations of love for what people had for others, their loved ones that they buried, their loved ones that they've left behind. Like, he can find all of these things, but he cannot ultimately like produce the destiny that he himself is looking for, and it haunts him. And this dreamlike quality that some of these characters interact with him in, even in a couple of like really clever sequences, when he's actually sleeping and dreaming, like, I think is like really clever. And that's the stuff that grounds the movie the most. Those are the moments that are like lightning rods for me. Some of the quieter stuff, some of the smaller stuff, a little slow for me personally. Like I said, 2 hours 10 minutes felt a little long for La Chimera. I wish I could have trimmed 15 minutes in there somewhere, but tons of fun. It's hard to believe O'Connor shot this in between, or he shot Challengers in between this. Apparently they shot half this movie and then like broke for the weather, and he flew to the States and shot all of Challengers and then came back and shot the other half of this movie. And it's weird looking at it because you would never know that he is like Rip Tone Tennis Man like he is in Challengers, but I guess that's the magic of acting. Really stellar work. Like, it's small, intimate. Not only did I like this, I think I'd probably like to go see Alicia's next project in a theater if I can, because I watched this at home. It's like $7 VOD. And I guess we should get to
Definitely
recommendations.
needs the focus of a theater. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this one for recommendations, Andy?
Well, I wanted to talk about how this is, takes place in the Italian countryside, which is usually a very romantic thing, but it's like actually in the Italian countryside and features real Italian people. And it makes me laugh at portrayals such as like House of Gucci, where we had Jared Leto doing this like ridiculous over the top Italian accent. And then like, I don't remember the last time I saw like a movie where Italian people were just kind of everyday Italian people were portrayed, because all these, like, they got a gang of people that they're digging graves and having fun, eating together, going to parties, dancing. It's all in Italian, and Josh O'Connor doesn't speak Italian, but he learned a good deal for this. I read in an interview. He says he learned enough to get by, but it's very convincing. He sounds like like he's been speaking it for a long time. But it was just interesting to just kind of have a more authentic portrayal of Italian people than what we kind of get in the States a lot of times.
Yeah, a fascinating dive. I had no idea he took this role not actually speaking the language. That's even more crazy because he doesn't have any other, like, I should say, actors of notable fame acting among. Like, he's definitely the title card feature player here. So, like, he had to go into this knowing, all right, I'm going to be in a place I've never been, acting with people I definitely don't have a method worked out with. Like, it's ambitious. I like it. I like La Chimera. I think I'm ready to recommend it. Andy, would you recommend La Chimera?
I would recommend it to my fellow film heads, lovers of independent and bold cinema. It isn't a very interesting character portrayal of this person who seeks to find lost things, but is lost himself, and is kind of on a journey of self discovery, self reflection. Very interesting setting. It is a little bit long. It could probably trim 15-20 minutes, but it's a fun film to talk about and think about and discuss after you've seen it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think for those who like bold cinema, or like something unique and different, like, I think it's a great time. I do wish I'd caught it in a theater. Like Andy said, I think the extra focus of just that would have helped me a bit, but I'll have to revisit it. I think I think uniquely, like the themes of the film, me going back after some time and digging this back out is going to give me like a different view than I had before, in the best way. I don't mean that to be, full of myself or anything, but like, I don't know. I think there's a bit of magic in this movie, and I really enjoyed it. And the more I think about it, the more I think, man, it really is something clever. I like it. Rohrwacher's great. Josh O'Connor's great. Worth your time. And with that, God, we should wrap up the show. That is already episode 254, nearly behind us. Andy, what are we watching next week?
We're going to be checking out In a Violent Nature, which is a new horror film that's a slasher from the perspective of the slasher himself, the killer themselves. We've heard a lot of buzz about. Apparently, it's brutal, it's gory, it's graphic, but it's kind of an alternate take on the slasher genre. So we're excited to see that. And then we're going to be looking for something else on streaming. Streaming offerings are few and far between. Possibly things like Boy Kills World or The First Omen, or some other things. Another just FYI release, Robot Dreams, the animated film, comes out this Friday as well, if you're interested in that for the kids. And upcoming in first week in June will be this. We're probably not going to watch these because we're taking that week off, but Bad Boys Ride or Die and The Watchers will be out June 7th.
Yeah, really interested in a violent nature. I tell you, the only thing I think I'm scared of in that movie is the pacing, because every trailer I've seen is some beautiful shots, but also like just following a guy walking, and it's like agonizingly slow. And I'm like, if this is all that's going on for 90 minutes, I'm taking a nap. You can kill as many teens as you want. But hopefully something exciting is happening in there. We'll find something else for streaming. Watch out, Andy. These slow weeks, I'm telling you, you might be watching Reagan. We're covering Reagan for the podcast.
No, don't make it
triple
happen.
Feature. Yeah. Anyway, if you enjoyed the show today, if you like what we're doing here on Off Script, if you maybe have seen us before, or you want to see what we got going on after this, the best way to do that is just subscribe to the show wherever you're seeing this. If you're seeing this clip, if you're seeing our individual review, if you're seeing the full episode, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play, iHeartMedia, wherever you're at, there's a subscription button somewhere, and I know you can hit it. I know you're more than capable. You listen to this whole show, why not, right? Give us a follow and let us know what you thought of the show. You can rate and review if you like, and you can leave a comment where applicable. We love the feedback. We love that you guys like listening and watching movies like we listening to and watching movies like we do. I got to get out of here. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Google Play is where the audio podcast is, all the usual places you may be listening to us there right now. You can find the episodes on YouTube. Tons of good things happening on the YouTube page. Come check us out over there, and we'll be back next week with more from Off Script Film Review, the home of bold cinema. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.